It is 7 p.m. and I can officially call the Board of Selectmen meeting for June 23rd to order. Thank you all for joining us. Please rise as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting. We are waiting for our first presentation, so I'd like the Board of Selectmen to recognize a young person in our audience. I'd like a motion to amend the agenda to recognize Justin. I wrote down Justin, and it is Justin Fossum. So if I could have a motion to amend the agenda to allow us to publicly honor Justin.
Move that.
Ty?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Excuse me. I would like to now recognize Justin Fossum. Justin is a 2014 graduate of Simsbury High School. He is the winner of first place, the Home Builders Northeastern Connecticut Student Design Competition, and you can certainly see why Justin built this, and he did a great job. His parents, Kevin and Olivia, are here tonight. Congratulations. So Justin, come on up, and congratulations to you. So Justin came to our attention at a recent meeting of the innovation group of the collaboration between the Historic Society and the town and the library, and we were blown away by what the students at Simsbury High School had done and to be innovative and creative. So Justin, take it away. Why don't you explain your project?
That was in an architecture class, Architecture 3 this year at Simsbury High School. I had the pleasure of having the instructor of Dr. Wendy Koo. She's great. I've had her for the past 4 years at Simsbury High School, from freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and now senior year. Our goal of this class was to design a 2,000 square foot house that had a minimum of 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bath. We had to implement at least 3 green building concepts, whether it was using materials from the surrounding areas, such as rocks to build the foundation, or trees you cut down to clear the lot as your 2x4s if you spread them to a local mill, or just using like your roof face south to collect the correct amount of sunlight that you needed. And you just had to build it and design it, and you could use whichever way you wanted. I found the Dutch colonial to be most visually appealing to me. So that's what I decided to model it after. And I first started by building a computer-aided design using Chief Architects to build it, and then built a model off of the renderings that I made. So.
Well done. And Justin's on too.
I'm heading off next year to Alfred University up in New York, and intended to major would be mechanical engineering. So.
Wow.
Congratulations.
And thank you for taking time out of your summer vacation to note that, to be here, and we're just thrilled that you would allow us to keep this on loan so other folks can enjoy it, and we wish you all the best next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll move to public audience. Yes, sir.
Before we start public audience, I noticed on your agenda that you have State Representative Hampton addressing the board and the audience and the public. And I'd like you and the board to make a motion and second it that the candidates who oppose Mr. Hampton, myself and the Republican candidate, be allotted the same amount of time that Mr. Hampton is going to spend addressing you and the people in public audience. And I'd like you to make that motion, and I would like somebody to be benevolent enough to second that motion.
Thank you. Is that your comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's not my full comment.
Well,
but if you're
no,
not
I'm
going
giving you
to
5
allow
minutes.
it, then
This is public audience.
I'm going to go public audience.
If you have public audience, please continue.
In other words, you're telling
I will
me-
take it up after public audience. Because I don't, let me ask the board.
then it
The board,
becomes
excuse me,
redundant.
would the board like to make, anyone on the board like to make a motion to allow this a political forum?
No.
Okay, thank you. You are entitled to 5 minutes public audience. Thank you.
Well, thank you for letting me address the forum. And, you know, this is a party that's Democratic with the small d. They claim they're union, the Democrats claim that they're union, but they attack union people and family party people who are union. They claim they're for free speech, but when I ask for the same amount of time that's going to be allotted the Democrat, I'm turned down, right? Well, you heard the exchange between the first selectman and I over this silly thing. But they call it free speech, and she'll go and tell everybody she gives us free speech. It's more or less, and the other abuses that are going through this town, in my opinion, and the reason I want to run, is bordering on corruption. It's bordering. They're talking about Hartford with the stadium. They don't have to go to Hartford in the stadium. That's all they have to do is come to Simsbury and look what's going on in the performing arts, headed up by a Democrat, Dave Ryan. You'll see the abuses that are going on down there. The abuse, there was an incident on Friday night, and they're trying to figure out just what happened down there. One person said it was a rape, another person said it was two people that were intoxicated, and they gave them a ride home. And the thing that troubles me, we have a police department, but the police department is only 5 people. They've gone out and hired their own police force. It's called Bushnell Security, and they're running the show. So who do they report to? Do they report to the police department? No. They report to the performing arts. And and then the next thing we have is on the 19th of June, right? The state representative from Simsbury and the state senator decided that they were going to have an affair at 7 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning at the high school, and that's all it was, using taxpayers' money for their political agenda. And here's another situation, and it's right here. Dear friends, I am very pleased to announce I will be hosting a subsidized training and employment program step-up conference for business along with Senator Kevin Whitghost and the Simsbury Chamber of Commerce. On our dime, on the taxpayers' dime. Then we go to a couple articles just to, so if we start to, anybody wants to challenge me and that's another thing. Impugn my military record? They have no right to impugn my military record. Your Democratic poison pen people have set out to impugn my military record. It's there. It's there. I was 25 miles behind the enemy lines. That's behind the North Korean lines. And it's there. And you're trying to impugn my record? You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. And this is your Democratic Party, your poison pen people. And then we go back to Hartford with their stadium. And we have an article from John Lender, right? And it's the same situation we have down here with the performing arts. Special seats, special treatment, special tickets. And they're going to try and do the same thing at the stadium in Hartford if they ever build it, that they're doing over here. People are taking tickets and they're handing out tickets, and what they've done through this 501c plan or whatever it is, they pulled down a cloak of secrecy on the performing arts. You don't know what's going on, and I'm told if you ask the first select woman what's going on down there, she says it's a 501, it's not her problem. And this is what's going on over there.
Thank you, Mr.
With our
Kaufman.
tax money.
It's 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to address the board? Yes. Yes, and then I'll go.
26 Wickham Drive. I'm very concerned about the Concert Creek that we have delegated to a nonprofit Simsbury Meadows Performing Arts. The concerts on June 13th and June 15th brought about 4,000 people to the first concert and about 7,000 people to the other one. According to the Simsbury Police Department, they have provided 6 police officers to the first concert and 8 police officers at the second one. It also should be noted that the USA Security provided about 25 to 30 security agents for the first concert and about 35 to 40 agents for the second concert at the request of the promoters of the bands. I do not have an exact number of security agents because when I was directed to ask Tom Vincent, he wouldn't give me the exact number because he said that I said he was dumb at the Board of Selectmen meetings when he was first selectman. So he's not obligated to give me the information, although it was readily available since his binder was on the table. I stand by my comments. The approximate figures came from the Simsbury Police Department. Although there are no signs at the entrance to the meadows stating there are signs at the entrance to the meadows stating no smoking on site or parking lots, end quote. Although the sign stated clearly that smoking was prohibited, it was noted that there was marijuana use, cigarette smoking, and excessive alcohol consumption at the concerts. If possession of marijuana is illegal, how can these concert goers get a free pass? Why was this illegal activity ignored at the activity site? Since alcohol consumption is allowed on town property, is the use of marijuana also allowed? There was an alleged assault at the first concert that is being investigated by the Simsbury Police Department, since the people involved were too drunk to be interviewed at the time. At the other concert, an ambulance was called for alleged excessive drinking. Several cars were observed in town and private parking lots before the concert began. Tailgating allows unsupervised alcohol consumption prior to the concerts. What is the town's position on tailgating in parking areas and private parking lots before the concert began? Tailgating allows unsupervised consumption prior to the concert. What is the town's position on tailgating in town parking areas and private parking areas? It appears that a recreational vehicle owned by Bob Hensley, a member of the Performing Arts, was parked in a no parking area on Iron Horse Boulevard during both concerts. Was Bob Hensley using the RV to entertain clients and friends outside the regulations of the concert that he was supposed to regulate? Why does Bob Hensley have special status in our town? I would like to have the Board of Selectmen evaluate the use of Simsbury Meadows for concerts that bring large crowds to town. Why do the promoters require large numbers of security? Does Simsbury have the capacity to control the crowds and sustain the risks that alcohol consumption, marijuana use, and secondhand smoke are generated from thousands of concert goers? The Hartford Courant recently had an article, Pot Brownie Sickened Student at Bloomfield School. 3 students at the Metropolitan Learning Center brought weed brownies to school, where a student had an adverse reaction and was taken to the hospital. Now that Simsbury has a marijuana factory in town, it appears there is an increase in motor vehicle tickets for possession of marijuana with a $150 summons. An article written by Maureen Dowd, a noted New York Times columnist, of her experience with edible marijuana in Colorado in an article titled, "I Am Dying, Please Help in Denver," end quote. She experienced her experience with edible marijuana in Colorado in an article titled, I'm dying, please help me. She writes, and I quote, "What could go wrong with a bite or two? I'll have some more. This thing is delicious." This is a quote from her. 8 bites, and wait, there we go. Please help me. I don't know what day it is. I am pretty sure that I've entered some sort of vortex and time has stopped completely. I have checked my watch 400 times in the last 3 hours, but according to my watch, no time has passed. This is her account of how she reacted to legal marijuana. Accepting the marijuana factory in Simsbury has violated federal laws and has increased the use of marijuana. Will First Selectman Mary Glassman have a zombie patrol to control the use of marijuana in town? Recently, there was an article in the Hartford Current, landmark owners share big plans. The owner of the building is owned by David Richmond, the same person that has been delinquent in paying his taxes. Presently has a zoning violation costing him over $30,000 with a $150 a day fine from November 2013 until the illegal handicapped ramp is removed from his building at 730 Hop Meadow Street. He has had building violations in his building over 10 years. On October 25th, 2010, People's Bank filed a property foreclosure on Richmond's building, West Street Storage. As soon as he purchased the building at 760 Hop Meadow Street, he wanted to flip it by selling it to town for a senior center. The town should not negotiate with Dave Richmond since he has been defiant with the town for years. I would like to report that I have not heard any decision on the legality of 33 Canal Street as a medical building in an R15 zone from Town Attorney Bob DiCrescenzo. This is the same home rented to Representative John Hampton. And once again, this board is asked to name a room by a town resident. Thomas F. Garrity Jr. family approached the town with a donation of money for a fitness center at Simsbury High School. Just because Garrity has the ability to donate money for a fitness room should not give him the right to have a name on a room. A donation of money should not be the standard for naming rights. The town should not be bought by the highest bidder. Would the Garrity family withdraw their donation if their name was not on the room? I would urge this board to deny the application for a family name on a room just because they had the ability to donate large sums of money for a specific project. Thank you for listening, and all my comments will be on www.simsbury.com and also on Simsbury Patch Jones Co's blog. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Yes.
I have two issues tonight. One is just obviously my regular land use issues. I wasn't able on Tuesday to attend the Economic Development Task Force, but I appreciate the fact that there's a lot of positives in it from, trying to talk about different things to attract and talking about, the way to market the town. The only one thing that I think the residents have issue with, other than there's probably some controversy over tax abatement and stuff, is, again, trying to modify the zoning regulations to make them a little too easy for people to basically not have zoning regulations. So other than that, I think that's just the big hotbed that we need to deal with. And but, it's been positive. And the reason I couldn't go Tuesday was because it was the anniversary of my mother's death. And this is a picture of my parents. And I go by it every day in the dining room, and I shake my head, going, I just can't believe what this year has been like. I have been to hell and back this year from things that had happened to me. And I'm going to address, I'm doing my own legislative update on what's gone on. My mom, I was a caregiver for my parents for 13 years. My mother was eligible for a program for a long time, and so was my dad. Last 6 months, I needed help. So I went to go get help from this program. The bottom line is that I went there, and then I called our representative to help me, who I also grew up with, because his sister was one of my best friends growing up. So to add insult to injury, my mom was declining, and I needed help so that I could either go get a job and have somebody come in, or get, and they said, well, there's a program and you can get paid for it. So I went through this arduous process. The doctors were behind me. All the nurses, all the home care people, they were all behind me. This one lady came to my house in an hour and ruined my life forever. And it was as simple as unraveling it. And it could even have been unraveled after my mom had passed away. But I was approached by Mr. Hampton 2 weeks after my mother died and say, why don't you let this go? Now, there's financial implications into this. And the bottom line is, it's now turned into a med malpractice case. And quite frankly, the money's become bigger now. And it was pretty simple back then. And my mom, I just remember her saying to me, they really didn't help us, did they? And I tried to put a good face on it. And I am absolutely livid with the fact of how this happened. He was also upset because one of my friends put a comment about him on Simsbury.com. And as God is my witness, for the next till September, November, whatever, I will go door to door and tell everyone what happened to us. I am so angry about this, and it was such a simple thing that could have been done. I had to go to the doctor on Tuesday to get my B12 shot, and I went in, and she just said, I'm really sorry, we really, tried for you. I'm like, it's not your fault. They even called 2 weeks after we were on the program to try to get it unraveled, and the guy was snarky to her. Not him, but the guy at the place. All of this information from day one was with Mr. Hampton. And instead of dealing with it, he put his head in the sand and decided that, you know what? I'm just going to push you off because it's going to go away. Well, I got news for you, John. It's not going away.
You could address
And
the
it's
board
gonna
because
follow
we're trying
you.
not to make this a political forum. If you could address
It is a
the board.
political forum because you know what?
This is
I
a board of
don't
selectmen.
care about, you know what? They could run a monkey and I'd vote for the monkey.
Yeah.
He screwed up it's the last 6 years of my mother's life and mine. And that's the bottom line. And that's very serious. And you can't use your political office to do that to somebody. And it's absolutely horrid as to what happened to us. And it's absolutely horrible as to what's happening to me right now. And it was very easy to unravel. And everybody remembers, I used to run Rob's campaign. So I know how to get things unraveled down there. And I know how the process works. And it became incredibly hard. I don't even know Cheryl.
Okay.
But what my point about it is that somebody needs to understand that he's not doing his job.
Thank you, Sue. And I'm sorry for your loss. If you'd leave me the name of the agency, I can certainly try to find out. Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? Just remind folks it's not a political forum. This is a Board of Selectmen meeting, and we're here to do business. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you for your comments. We'll move now to our presentations. First is our Connecticut Still Revolutionary Fan Favorite Town. I want to call on Dominique Avery, who's with tourism. Town was aware of a competition to be named the fan favorite Connecticut town, and you have to vote for the town of Simsbury. There's a website. So Dominique, thanks for spearheading this initiative. I thought I'd give you the floor and tell people how to vote.
Thank you. I'm glad I got here on time. The grandson is here right now. There's a little bit of an uproar before I left. I'm here tonight to tell everyone that it's now time to vote for Simsbury in the State Tourism Still Revolutionary Contest on Facebook. A few weeks ago, I was here to say that you would learn about when to vote, but the time is here now. The annual contest that the state runs is designed to highlight the state town that they say, quote, best embodies the spirit of the state's tourism still revolutionary brand as a place for innovation and ideas. Well, as we've seen in Simsbury this year, from the town library's acquisition of the 3D printer to the Historical Society's new exhibits, innovation could be Simsbury's motto today. We are the intersection of innovation and nature, as marketing consultant Peter Fairweather put it. But you probably all know this, those of you who are sitting here, but maybe our viewers outside don't know. The rest of the state does not see us as innovators or know anything about our connection to nature, I think. I see Lisa looking a little skeptical.
She's a believer, that's why.
I'm a believer.
I think that a lot of people see us as an upscale, boring bedroom suburb.
Bite your tongue.
I don't see us that way, but I think they do. Wikipedia is less judgmental, but the first thing that it says is Simsbury is a suburban town in Hartford County. Boring. Somewhere on the internet recently, I read a review of one of our churches, and that review called the church posh. I was sort of shocked to see that. And yesterday I read a comment on Simsbury Moms Unite. To a person who was looking for a town to move to, someone wrote to her online, Simsbury is great, but if you want to live where there are things to do, go to West Hartford and Farmington. My reaction was, huh? Do they have a bridge of flowers? The town jewel that Yankee Magazine just featured with a photo as a 2014 Editor's Choice winner in their travel guide for New England? No, they don't. Do they have a genealogical library? Do they have a 16-acre historical society? Do they have the Talcott Mountain Music Festival with the Hartford Symphony? Under the Stars, do they have Willie Nelson? Did they have Willie Nelson and Alison Krauss play? Do they have miles of bike trails and free bikes to borrow? Do they have miles of trails, hiking trails, and 30% of their town as open space? Do they have Hugh Blind Tower? Do they have whitewater kayaking? Do they have the best foliage in the state without the crowds? The biggest tree? Do they have the most beautiful public golf course that I've ever seen? And outdoor swim center with the most extraordinary views? Do they have an airport?
No.
Exactly. Thank you. No, they
you were
have
waiting
none
for
of
us.
those things. This contest that the state is running gives us a chance to let the state know that we are a fabulous place to live, work, and a great place to visit. Now, I'm going to ask you to bear with me for one more second. Some of you here may know this, but not everybody in the audience will know it. As to the state's intention to find the town that best embodies the spirit of the state's tourism still revolutionary brand as a place for ideas and innovation, allow me a quick review of how Simsbury has been a place over the years that fosters innovation starting in the 1880s. Just a little history lesson. William Bickford, Ensign Bickford, invented the safety fuse here in the 1830s, a huge advance in mining technology. George McLean, born here in 1857, was the 42nd governor of Connecticut. I think he was pretty innovative. William Phelps Eno, born here in 1858, the original architect of traffic regulations and transportation engineering, sometimes called the father of the traffic light. Gifford Pinchot, born here in 1865, an ardent environmental preservationist, and the first head of the U.S. Forest Bureau Service. The coin telephone was invented in 1888 by William Gray, who was born in the Tarryville section of Simsbury.
I did not know that.
Simsbury was, I'm glad I'm giving you some information. Simsbury was also home to Henry Phillips, who invented the Phillips screwdriver, although I think he invented it before he moved here. And finally, it was in Simsbury where Dr. Martin Luther King spent 2 summers working here in the tobacco fields in the 1940s, and his time here was instrumental in shaping his decision to become a minister, and his experience here opened his eyes for the first time to a world without segregation. We are indeed the intersection of nature and innovation. So I hope with this little outline I've convinced you to vote for Simsbury.
And how do we do that?
Okay, so that's the next thing. How
I'm
to
excited.
Well, you have to be on Facebook. And if you are not on Facebook, and I know not everybody is, maybe you know somebody on Facebook. So you got to pester your friends on Facebook. On Facebook, it's not always that easy. Some people had trouble doing it when they started. You have to go to Visit Connecticut. On the Visit Connecticut site, you'll see sort of a toolbar, and on the left-hand side, it says timeline, and then as you look to the right, you'll see something that says hashtag CT fan favorite. That's what you click on to vote. You scroll down past some photos and you'll see a blue sign that says vote here. And then you can vote. You click on it and then you get an opportunity to select your town, or you get the whole list of all the towns, and then you can select your favorite place in town. And then you have to say whether it's historic, or it gives you a number of choices. And it also gives you a chance to post a photo. But let me warn you, you should post the photo before you vote and not afterwards, because if you do it after, you can't vote. Something else to point out is that everybody in town can vote every day. You can start
Vote
today.
early and often,
Vote.
as they say.
And it's not illegal. It's totally legal until July 25th. One further thing I want to add is that for those of you who are competitive, last week they announced the top 10 towns in the voting so far.
And?
We were not on it.
Oh,
Is
All right,
anybody interested
everybody-
in hearing who was on it?
No.
no.
Okay. So I'm here to urge you to get busy and vote. Now, I know there are some people who don't think that we should be engaging in this. And I wanted to give you just a quick idea of what you get if we win, or even if we're in the top 10, we get some things. So if you give me 2 more minutes. The Connecticut Still Revolutionary Town of the Year Award, that's what you receive if you win it, and you get bragging rights for the year. I don't know how important that is. But more important is you get PR support and promotion to raise awareness for the town and the place that wins. They give you, the Connecticut Office of Tourism gives us advertising support, an honorary plaque signed by the governor, an editorial feature in the 2015 Connecticut Visitors Guide. That's really important because we don't exist on the state tourism website. And then a week-long social media takeover across Visit Connecticut's social channels. So it's actually worth getting. But you do have to vote because the other towns that are ahead are voting early and often. So vote. I told Mary the other day, I get up every morning, go to my Facebook page, and I vote. And I don't select the same thing every time, but maybe I should. I sort of spread my favors around. Any questions?
Any questions? Dominique, thank you for spearheading this initiative, and thanks for bringing
So-
awareness tonight. We're all going to go home and vote.
Okay,
So thank
good.
you. Let's go, Simsbury.
Every day.
Thank you. Okay. Now we'll get a quick update on the triathlon event that was recently held, and I want to welcome Linda Schofield, who organized the event, and thank you, Linda, for being here tonight.
Sorry, I didn't mention triathlon. It's actually a great segue from Dominique into the triathlon, because triathlon was one of those events where we were trying very hard to help people outside of Simsbury to understand what great outdoor resources we have here in town. It was, just to give you a little history, it was put together entirely by a group of volunteers, Lisa Hebner included, and also 2 town staff people who were volunteering their time, Tom Roy and Jerry Toner. It was a town-sponsored event, but didn't take any town money. And explicitly, the purpose of it all along was not just about making a race for race participants, but really the key goals that were in everyone's mind were to showcase Simsbury's great outdoor recreational assets and encourage people to consider moving here, eating here, shopping here, having fun here, and otherwise contributing to our local economy. The course was designed to highlight the hiking trails, the bike path, and the river, along with landmarks like the Flower Bridge, the Performing Arts Center. We tried to get Hugh Blind Tower on the path, but couldn't quite make it. But you had a great view from the river of the tower. So we tried to help people see what a great place Simsbury was. The race course was a run, bike, paddle course, which is a little different than most triathlons. Most triathlons are swim, run, bike, or swim, bike, run. Turned out that the kayaking part on the river was really a big draw for a lot of triathletes who wanted to do something a little different, and a lot of them don't really like the swimming part, so they were really happy not to have to be going in the water, which would have been pretty chilly anyway. And interestingly, I've learned a lot about triathlons since organizing this. It's like one of the fastest growing sports in the nation. These people are, pardon me, maniacs. They like beating themselves up in these athletic ways. So it was very successful in attracting people to town. Just to give you a few statistics, although when we started working on it, the professional amongst us who is a professional race organizer, triathlon organizer, told us that we'd be really lucky to get 70 people. We had a total of 225 registrants, including all the people on relay teams. And we had several groups who ran it as a relay as opposed to doing the whole thing. 68.5% of the people were from outside of Simsbury. Many from the Valley, but certainly many from a broader community of Connecticut. And almost 11% were from outside of the state. So we had people from Pennsylvania, from New York, Massachusetts, Vermont.
California.
California. So yeah, people came from near and far to participate here, and in the process got to see what a beautiful town Simsbury was. I do want to take a moment to say thank you to a bunch of people. We had great support from the business community. Sarah Nielsen and the Main Street Partnership helped us with gathering items for the goodie bag and prizes, and we really appreciated that. I also want to thank the Simsbury Land Trust and Tim Ellsworth for allowing us to use their property as part of the running trail. And we had a huge number of volunteers helping, particularly on race day. So we really appreciated them, including a number of Boy Scouts who did a bang-up job, and the boys at the ABC House who also did a great job. And we had tremendous feedback from race participants who not only said what a great town it was, but what great people were here. They really appreciated the volunteerism. And, you know, that's part of what makes a town attractive to people, is to see, wow, what a nice community. Everybody was really nice and helpful. So race participants were amazingly enthusiastic. All of us volunteers who were working hard that day had a great time because their enthusiasm was so infectious, and they all wanted to come again next year. And as a result, all of the volunteers are really excited to do it again next year. It's very hard to measure the economic impact of events like this, or of things like, you know, voting for Simsbury, but they all do add up. It gives, you know, each event or activity gives a little bit more recognition to the town in the broader community. I would, you know, point out that after the race, I went to the one-way fair with a few friends, and 2/3 of the place was packed, and 2/3 of the people in there were race participants, which I could tell because their race numbers were still on their arms. So there were lots of people coming to, you know, the businesses on race day. But aside from that, we had a number of pre-race training runs. Ed Cox was terrific. He took people on runs at all times, in the rain, in the sun, you know, any weather conditions. These people showed up in all of those conditions. They don't mind the mud. And they all went out to breakfast afterwards, and they wanted to know about other trails in town and, you know, how to access the community. So, you know, it was broader than just on race day. We learned a lot on this initial race. Obviously, first time, you always continuous quality improvement, pick up some ideas of how we can do it better next time. So we certainly will be doing that. But amazingly, really didn't have anything go wrong, which we were very pleased with. I know there was a concern when we first set up the special revenue fund. Mary wanted to make sure we weren't going to be spending any town money, so I'm happy to report that there was absolutely no cost to the town. We are solidly in the black because we got way more participants than we actually predicted. So bills have been paid as they were incurred. The last bills just went to Jerry Toner, and he just emailed me today, actually, saying got them, and he'll get them paid. So we'll have a final accounting shortly. But I know that we are at least a few $1,000s in the black, which will be very helpful for next year because we need that money to do things a little differently. We'll be hiring, instead of me doing all the work, I'm very happy to say we will hire a professional race director and probably pay for someone to do the website and a few other things. So the expenses will be a little bit higher now that we know how successful this can be. As a final note, I'm thrilled that in the budget this year, there's money for working on the trails in between the river and Iron Horse Boulevard. And I would really encourage the town to think about broadening its footprint in the world of racing, because there is money to be made for the town doing that, as we've experienced, given our positive cash flow. It's a great thing. It's a way to get people attracted here. You could have a 5K or some sort of event in the meadows on a frequent basis during the summertime, and it would be, a boon to the town businesses. People might go to dinner afterwards, and it's a great way of, again, highlighting Simsbury's outdoor recreational assets, which the Fair Weather Report told us we should do. So, any questions?
Thank you, Linda. Thanks for the update. I'll ask if there's any questions. No, thanks for giving us the update.
Thank you.
And well done. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Our final presentation is by State Representative John Hampton, who's here, and John will give us a brief update. I did want to thank John, the Simsbury Chamber, and Senator Witkos for the Step Up Conference you heard mentioned earlier. It was the North Central Region Employer Subsidized Training and Employment Program. It was a program run by the Department of Labor, no cost to the town. It was a phenomenal program where all of the state programs available to local businesses were all had a table, and we received direct contact information for training opportunities for manufacturing, how to integrate the new health access program, bidding on state contracts, starting and growing your business, tax exemptions to support your business. I passed that along to the Economic Development Commission, and I just wanted to thank you and Senator Witkos for bringing this great program to Simsbury.
Thank you, and good evening, and thank you so much for having me back to the chamber. It's happy to be back here and be with you all, and folks here at home, and thank you to SCTV for filming our town meetings and all of our programs, including these types of meetings. I wanted to thank Dominique, who neglected to mention the Great Burgers on the Bridge event the other night, which was the godmother of the Flower Bridge, so we have to give her a special shout out for those who were there. It was a really
fun.
Special night, and just another reason to vote for Simsbury early and often. I wanted to thank each of you for your hard work, and especially all of you who have connected with me during the legislative session. I know Mary is a frequent flyer down at the Capitol, and Mike Payne is down there quite a bit, and it's really important to continue a partnership with the municipality. And as a former selectman, I know how hard you work and how important it is to keep our municipalities whole and keep them harmless, and certainly support your efforts. We just completed May 7th, the short legislative session. Of course, the budget was a key issue this year, but there's lots of other issues that we addressed that's in this packet. I won't go over each one, but certainly feel free to ask questions or review and get back to me at another time. First and foremost is the budget, and we did not want to do harm to municipalities, so we held municipalities harmless. In fact, we, in our budget, brought more funding home to Simsbury through ECS funding, through grants for school security, and funding for the Simsbury Senior Center. So in a difficult climate, it was really important for us to make sure that we don't pass on the burdens to our local municipalities and to our local residents. I serve on the Education, Public Safety, and Aging Committee, 3 committees, which I certainly enjoy serving on. On the Aging Committee, my first bill, which was passed last year, created a task force on Alzheimer's disease. In the next 10 to 20 years, we're anticipating what we call a senior tsunami, where our state and our nation needs to be prepared for the growth in the senior population and address every issue from healthcare to housing to transportation. I've had so many seniors come up to me who actually still want to work. They don't want to retire and want to be part of the workforce. And we crafted legislation this year that enables seniors who are healthy and vital and don't want to stop working to re-enter the workforce. The task force addresses the impact of Alzheimer's disease on this nation and on the state in the next 10 to 20 years, how it impacts families, how it impacts the economy, training municipalities, training nursing homes, training businesses on how to deal with Alzheimer's disease and its effect. And again, we are facing a boon in the senior population that we do need to be ready for. Some of the greatest ideas come from your constituents. I want to give a shout out to Chris Drew, a resident who submitted legislation to expand senior tax relief, municipal tax relief, by providing relief to those seniors who hold property in trust. And it went through both chambers, passed successfully, and will enhance, voluntarily allow municipalities like Simsbury to extend tax relief for seniors who hold a home in trust. We did a lot for seniors in terms of safety zones, nutrition, continuing aging in place initiatives, and it continues to be a fascinating issue, especially as I start to live the experience of caring for, as many of we are, caring for our older parents and trying to keep them in their homes or trying keeping them healthy and vital. On the Aging Committee, there was a lot of discussion on the Common Core, 17-hour hearing from constituents and professionals alike on that issue, a heated issue. We certainly wanted to make sure that Simsbury Schools received the funding it needs to continue. We addressed mental health initiatives in the continued wake of Sandy Hook. We also addressed school security, more funding for school security, which is definitely a worthwhile investment. On the Public Safety Subcommittee, we removed Keno from the equation, which we did not think was a healthy option for our state to become a state of gambling and other affiliated types businesses that we think that Connecticut certainly has a future if we invest in culture and arts and other tourism opportunities that we unanimously did not pass Keno onward as an option for revenue for our state. I was particularly proud of the work I did on behalf of the Farmington River with all of you to jump into action when there was a proposed water diversion by the University of Connecticut, by MDC. All of us banded together and said, that does not make sense economically, environmentally. And, oh, let's check our statewide water plan to see what that plan says. Well, we don't have one. But now we will, thanks to sweeping legislation, bipartisan legislation that all of you were part of, to make sure that Connecticut has a statewide water plan, that we don't move from crisis to crisis, that we plan for its quality, for public health, for emergency planning, for economic development, and that bill will be signed into law in a few weeks. Actually, it was signed, but it'll be officially signed in a couple weeks. I also chaired the first in the nation ever bipartisan caucus for families of those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. More and more, we're meeting older parents who are taking care of disabled, and they're reaching a point, the parents, where they're in their 70s and 80s and worried about where their child will go after they die. So in a bipartisan way, we came together to talk about relieving the waiting list, in-home supports. We were able to bring home $4 million, which is a drop in the bucket, toward supporting struggling families with those with intellectual and other disabilities, which is a looming critical issue. On the business side, we did have that Step Up conference. We had a great discussion of all the opportunities that are available through the state now. A lot of Simsbury businesses are taking advantage of the Small Business Express, the Step Up program. We were delighted in a bipartisan manner to keep United Technologies here in the state. We were happy to create a port authority, which for the first time in the state's history, to maximize the use of our ports and our waterways for economic development. And we streamlined a lot of burdensome regs that are holding back small businesses and hurting folks. And we heard that loud and clear. And I once again did vote against the minimum wage because I believe it's punitive to local businesses like Payne's, like Antonio's, who have been here for generations, that don't want to hurt their employer. and their employees, and they want to do the best for their community. So I think we want to support the labor, but I think the pendulum sometimes swings to the other side, where we're not where the Antonios and Paynes are lumped into big corporate giants like Walmart and McDonald's, and certainly sometimes we want to, as legislators, try and fix everything, but sometimes it's best to do no harm and step out of small businesses' way. So it's been an exciting first term, an exciting year. We addressed domestic violence, sexual assault. We continue to address consumer issues such as robocalls. We all love robocalls. The state, interestingly enough, took Simsbury as a model with our unwanted prescription drug program, and now that's the law of the state to bring back unwanted meds, to protect our environment, and a lot of different issues, protecting our open space and helping veterans. Really key issue. We created programs that give credit to veterans for their service to get jobs. And that's through the Step Up program. I toured EB a few weeks ago with Congresswoman Esty, met 4 young Iraqi vets in their 20s who got their job at EB through the Step Up program because they're veterans. And we need to make sure that our veterans, when they come home, have the very best, and that means jobs, good health care, and all the programs and services they need. So I will open up to questions.
Thank you. Thanks for the update. And again, that conference was excellent. The information is available, so folks need more information, we can provide it.
Sure.
Any questions? Okay. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
A couple quick updates. My first Selectmen's report first. Today, the town participated in a statewide 2014 Emergency Preparedness and Planning Initiative. The emergency operations staff prepared and planned this exercise, which gave all of our staff an opportunity to communicate with the state, to be prepared, and gave us an opportunity to review our own preparations to see if there's any additional action is needed as we enter the hurricane season. The exercise this morning was based on a Category 1 hurricane, which was hitting the entire state and was designed with an emphasis on mass care and individuals with functional needs. I'd like to thank Jeff Giddings, who filled in for Kevin Kowalski, who's the Emergency Preparedness Director, who was not available, and our town staff for participating in this year's drill, and Lisa Hebner, who also participated from Public Safety, and thank everybody for their involvement. In the 2014 Top Dogs in Simsbury, if you missed it, we have a winner, and that is Sherlock, and you can get a copy of Sherlock's pictures with Bijan Frise, who lives with Jason and Mallory Pascarillo, and she's the cutest dog in the land. So I want to thank Carolyn Kiley for offering this great program. It's a lot of fun and encourages our residents to participate. Couple of upcoming wonderful opportunities. Simsbury Recycling Committee, which you'll hear from later, will host Let's Talk Trash with the DEP Deputy Commissioner, Matt McCleary, or Matt McCleary as we know him, Monday, June 30th. It's a really interesting environmental quality and DEP performance. The event is very informative. It will be held from 6 to 7:30 at Eno in the youth room, and I'd like to thank the committee for their hard work and also bringing this great program to Simsbury. And finally, want to remind you that Simsbury's Farmers Market is open for its 7th season, hard to believe. It can be found on the grounds of Simsbury Square every Thursday from 3 to 6. Wonderful number of vendors, new vendors this year. I've already spent a lot of money there last Thursday, but I encourage folks to check out www.simsburyfarmersmarket.com. And that concludes my report. We'll move now to action items. The first is to approve tax refunds. These are tax refunds that have been reviewed and are recommended by a tax collector. They total an amount of $561.61. Can I have a motion to approve?
Move that.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is to review the status of the proposed zoning regulation changes for the Hartford property, 200 Hot Meadow Street. It's on our agenda at the request of the Zoning Commission. There was a public hearing last Tuesday. Unfortunately, it was not a great turnout. I was able to be there and speak to give some context, but there was not a good crowd there. The commission felt, because of the importance of the regulation, that they asked the Board of Selectmen to put this on our agenda to remind folks that there'll be a hearing of the Zoning Commission on July 7th. So if anyone has any questions, the form-based code has been on our website for some time, Hiram, since February. Well, since May that we've noticed the hearing. So there's the code is available online. There are copies available at Town Hall. Hiram's just going to do a quick update tonight so that the public has an idea if they want to know more what the regulations include. I know the Board of Selectmen has seen this a number of times. The Hartford Land Use Study Committee that we have, the task force, has reviewed this a number of times. But again, because of the importance of our partnership with the Hartford and the importance of the regulation, we felt it was important to put on the agenda, and we did that in cooperation with the Zoning Commission tonight. I do want to recognize Tom Bartel, who's here this evening to answer questions representing the Hartford, and John McCormick, who's the master marketer of the property. He's going to get us somebody really good to come in to Simsbury. So we do have a great partnership. Very quickly, I'll ask Hiram to just review the regulations again, and happy to answer any questions. So, Hiram.
Thanks very much, Mary. Pass these along. Great. Just very quickly go over what is a somewhat complex issue, but just a quickly brief history of where we were. We were notified, and Hartford came in and talked to us in 2013 about their departure. Actually, it's interesting that I noticed that I worked with Rich Sawicki as far back as 2000 and 2007 and 2008 to look at some different alternatives for that property for the Hartford. Unfortunately, we were unable to convince them to stay at that time, so they went to some lesser locations as far as we're concerned, but we would, I'm sure that they think they're very happy with them. So in the meantime, what we did was we established a joint effort to expedite the planning for the 173-acre site in 2013. Consulting teams were interviewed at the Hartford campus. Consultant was selected, and we began to work on the charrette in the fall of 2013. The charrette was open to the public. We made an extensive effort to get as many people there as we possibly could, including local businesses, Chamber of Commerce people, many state agencies as well. DECD came. We got a lot of good support from them as well as the Hartford, of course, and CBRE. The closing session for the entire public is still available on our town website if people would like to look at it or watch that. We produced some drafts of the code in February or March. The first drafts were presented then, posted on the town website. The final draft was posted in April and May, and now we have the final May 12th that's posted on the town website, and it's there for people to look at, and that's the draft that went to public hearing. Very quickly, as Mary said, a summary of the code. This particular code is produced specifically for this property. It's designed for this property and is specific to this property. So the question came up at the hearing. Somebody wanted to know, well, couldn't somebody just take this code and put it somewhere else? And the answer to that is no. It's a custom designed code, very similar in that respect to the town center code, where it has to fit in a particular piece of property. The way it's designed was specifically for this property. That's one of the reasons perhaps why it was, it's not an inexpensive code to put together, but specifically based upon the input from many of the sources that we had during the charrette process. There were a wide variety of uses that were considered for this code. I listed on the handout that I just gave you the way the code is structured. There are some illustrative plans that are part of the code. Those are also available online. If people can't print them out or for some reason don't happen to have an 11x17 printer at home, feel free to let me know and we'll get copies of them to you. But you can take a look at what those illustrative and framework plans show. It's important to know that there are appendices attached to the code that are really critical to the way the code is viewed or should be viewed. There are component zone summaries and illustrative images in the code. So there are pictures there that people, in case they don't know what all these charts look like, they can look at the pictures and say, oh, okay, that's what they mean in that particular area. So that we hope that that's helpful to people. There are descriptions of the use categories, and there are development application flow charts, which I think is very helpful. It's a complicated process. And so there are 4 different types of modifications that could come in, and there are types of applications all the way from type 1 through type 4. And basically they increase in terms of their complexity as you go through the process. The major considerations that are part of this code, and this is really important for the public to know, so I appreciate being able to present this tonight. The adopted guidelines for community design, which we worked really hard on to sort of spiff up for the town center, and that the Design Review Board has worked with for a long time, are used as a guide in this code. That is, references throughout the code to those guidelines. So it's not like we just threw that out and said, forget about this, we'll do something else different here. There are architectural design standards are included throughout the code as well, and that's really important. The views to and from the site specifically are to be viewed as what are called features in the code, not as constraints. And so to highlight those as features, that is to make them important rather than to sort of turn your back on them or negate their importance, as you've heard many times tonight. The purpose and intent of the regulation also allows for linear greenways along Hop Meadow Street, anywhere from 100 feet on the north parcel to 200 feet in depth on the south parcel are recommended. Zoning Commission could make those deeper if the case was warranted. And in recent cases, we've looked at sight lines from Hop Meadow Street up to the ridges to see what they would look like as various development proposals were proposed to the Commission. And that's a typical thing that we would see as part of this code as well. Creation of walkable, environmentally conscious development is very important. Traffic impacts on abutting properties is also mentioned very clearly and is important for people to know. This is another important part as well. The overall site coverage is set at a 60% maximum, which is our current regulations right now. A couple of years ago, we did pleased to say, an award-winning low-impact development standard for stormwater. And if those standards are employed as part of one of these developments, that maximum coverage could be exceeded, but only if it met those LID standards, which are really, really strict in terms of stormwater. So we thought that was a really good way to treat that as well. Overall, with respect to the environmental sites and constraints, and viewing those, again, as I said, as features rather than constraints is really a good way to do it. We hope that, at least I hope, that this code will go forward and be adopted by the Commission on July 7th. 3 quick things I want to make sure that you understand, that, and the public understands, that are really important. Came up at the meeting, and Mary heard, I'm sure, why couldn't we just use the PAD for this site? Well, there are a number of reasons why we couldn't, and why I don't recommend that we ever do that. Number one is the PAD doesn't require a specific format or forms for any particular developer to use. For example, we've approved 4 PADs so far in town, all very different, some with housing, some without housing, but the PAD can be a variety of different things depending upon the context. What we wanted to see at this particular site was we wanted folks to know we have a good idea what this is going to look like. And the illustrative plans that we put together as part of the form-based code require that that's what it looked like. So we know what it's going to look like. Now, it may be true that a developer comes in with a plan that's much better than anything we thought of during this whole charrette process. And that's what Type 4 application is for. It's called alternative compliance. And so there's a place where that can plug in. So if someone comes in with some great idea, we can say, okay, we can do that. And we can make short work of that whole process rather than to go through some long, extensive reorganization of the regulation that was never contemplated. So that's why a PAD is not the best tool for this particular site. And I'll talk to the Zoning Commission more about that on July 7th. But that's the reasons, just so that you know. One of the other questions that came up that was interesting, brought up by an attorney, was interesting, is that the pre-application meetings that are in the regulation are specified here to be mandatory. And he wanted to know, could you really do that? Based upon Section 7-159 of the statutes, they're suggested, and they're a good idea, but they're not required. Just got a letter today from the town attorney, said we can go ahead and do it. The way the wording is in the regulation is fine. They can come in. There's no penalty if they don't come in, if they say, no, we choose not to do that anyway. But we suggest that they do that. We think those public meetings, pre-application meetings, are really important for a couple of reasons. One is gives the commissions and boards an idea of what's going on. Second thing is it puts it all on the table for the public to know what's going on as well. Nobody's made an application. Nobody's spent $250,000 putting an application together and then find out it's a bad idea. So they can get it on the table fairly quickly in the beginning without spending a ton of money. And we thought those meetings ought to be mandatory, and they are listed that way in the regulation. One other thing, too, that I heard that's sort of interesting is that somebody stood up and said at the hearing, said that the planning director should have more discretion and we should make more of the 1, 2, and 3s easier to do and leave type 4 to be the most difficult one. We had this discussion back when we did Town Center, and I think the zoning commission decided at that time was 25,000 square feet was about all the slack they were going to give me as planning director or whoever's here, and that the rest of them could go to the commission, they could decide what they were going to do with that, and that's fine with me. So some other person stood up at one of the recent Hartford Land Use Study Committee meetings and said planning director shouldn't have any discretion. So what we're doing is trying to walk the line here and balance that between the things that we'd like to move along very quickly and things that we think need a lot of discretion by the Design Review Board, by the Planning Commission, by the Zoning Commission. Finally, I'd just like to say that we think the regulation overall is a very balanced, design-oriented, and economically viable. I'd like to say economically viable code. We think that's really, really important. We could put together a code that had a lot of nice pictures, and it was lovely, and all the neighbors would think it would be great, but it would be totally impossible to build. We think we've struck a really good balance here that is a combination of economic viability, land preservation, respect with the resources, walkable, sustainable, and we hope that it goes through on July 7th.
Thanks, Hiram.
Any questions?
Any questions? Just before you take questions, just one, I did want the record to reflect that Selectman Havner did recuse herself from the role, and I wanted to make sure that the minutes reflected that, so she doesn't get in trouble. Okay, questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment. I was at the public hearing, and I appreciate this chronology because I think one of the things, obviously, we're trying to do all along with the Chamber event, the multiple Hartford subcommittee meetings, the updates that we've given at the Board of Selectmen meetings is to inform the public, and I think there's been multiple opportunities to do that. As recently as the Hartford subcommittee's last meeting, where a woman came in and she spoke, and she was had some concerns, and John was there and spoke to her, and very quickly her concerns were waylaid, and so I think the process has worked, and while I appreciate the extension of this, I think it's important to move this forward, and one of the other comments was around the idea of adding more pages to the zoning regulations, and had we not done the town center, we wouldn't have that addition. And I don't think it's the end of those to come, because the plan of conservation and development really looks specifically at all the special hamlets that we have in town and the villages and what surrounds them being so unique and different. So there's probably a little bit more of this to come down the road, and I just think it's a good thing, and we should be looking at it as a very positive thing. I think that was really about it, but I just appreciate, as I said, the chronology and the fact that public's had a great opportunity to.
Great, thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Nancy, I think that we will, in fact, have some new regs when we do finish up the Weetag Village Center,
Right.
Village District. That's almost done, and as soon as we finish this, hopefully I'll get on with finishing up that. That could be another 30, 40 pages. These are really little concentrated little booklets of very detailed form-based stuff that we think the Design Review Board for years has been talking about, trying to do this and try to get the form in people's minds before we go ahead and just open the gate and say, well, whatever you want is fine. Some people have criticized the PAD regulation for that, but on the other hand, look at what the PAD regulations accomplished in a very short period of time as well. An article in the Hartford Business Journal today about the fact that people that are coming into Jackson Labs can't find a place to live. And that's kind of interesting in that we're hearing that, well, you folks are approving too much apartments, you need to be careful. We understand that, but they're not going to all be built in 1 year, nor is this development all going to be built in 1 year either. So we think that sort of approaching this in a phased way, the way this regulation allows to go forward, is very important. So we're hopeful that that'll happen.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Carol?
and maybe the other gentleman can address this, but have you been getting feedback from potential developers, people who might be interested in the site, that are, either positive or negative with regard to this proposed code?
Sure. I'm happy to take that, and John, we can give some additional color on that. So let me just get up here. I'm Tom Bartel from the Hartford, and many of you probably know me from as being the owner of Melanie, a golden retriever who was top dog in the past. And
That's how I knew you. I was going to introduce you.
That's right. And you would be surprised at how that title carries outside of the town of Simsbury. Every time we took our golden to the kennel, up in Granby, they would always say, "Oh, it's the top dog from Simsbury." So so it must have been the license number 1 on her collar. So. But Nancy, to your question, I would just say that, just as a lead-in, that we have been very pleased to have supported and participated in this very inclusive process, and would agree with you entirely that we think it's been a process that has really allowed for a maximum level of stakeholder input. And it is a very important process because, as you know, when we announced that we were leaving the property, one of the key principles for us was to work very hard to find an attractive buyer for the community. And we think that the development of the form-based code will help lead to finding an attractive buyer for the community. And as Hiram noted, and Hiram has done yeoman's work really pulling together a lot of information and helping to manage the consultant that did a tremendous amount of work. But as Hiram mentioned, we're hopeful that it will be adopted on July 7th. It is really a critical tool for our marketing of the property. And you asked about interest. We have certainly had interest in the property, and I think in large part there are probably a lot of potential buyers and developers out there that have been watching very closely the process of the development of the form-based code and are really watching to see where it ends up before they make a final decision. So to that end, what I'd like to do is have John McCormick come up and maybe give you a little better sense of the kind of interest we're seeing, what he's been hearing, and maybe a little color on what he's seeing outside of the Simsbury community and surrounding areas, just to give you an idea of the level of activity.
Thanks, Tom. That'd be great. Welcome, John.
Thank you. John McCormick. I live in New Hartford. I've been in the commercial real estate markets for the past 25 years, and I'm an executive vice president down in our Hartford office at City Place. I'm pleased to have been selected to be part of this process. As I've said from the very beginning, this is the most unique marketing that our firm's ever been done, with the town, staff, an institutional owner at the table all at the same time, trying to, as we said earlier, involve all the various stakeholders in how best to look at maintaining the economic engine that 200 Hot Meadow Street and potentially the 40-acre parcel to the north could end up becoming. I'd like to also remind Simsbury that they have a key role in both you as selectmen, but also as the zoning, to be at the most forward end of thinking about development in your community. There's not another community doing this anywhere in central Connecticut. And I've put on record at various subcommittee meetings, the most recent Site Selection magazine, May 2014, 2 examples, one from Oklahoma, one from Wisconsin, and the feedback that they're hearing about certified sites. And I'll just read something here. Certified in Wisconsin sites increase the comfort level of site selectors and companies by removing unknowns about a site and accelerating the site due diligence and implementation timeline. Development ready allows for prospective applicant to fast track not only the approval process, but also the construction and the various collaboration with all stakeholders. This is something that the state of Connecticut, the Economic Development Ombudsman program that's helping on this site, this is something that we're competing with nationally. So now I'd like to bring it into something on how you're competing locally. In Avon, just south of us on Route 10, the 88 acres in Avon Park North has a new overlay district called the Village Zone, and that provides for retail, office, medical office development. There's been some problems with that from a marketing standpoint because they're tying development activities to each segment. So you can't build out 100% of your housing before you build 50% of your retail. You can't build 50% of your retail until you've done 25% of your medical office. So that's a real challenge for the development community. In Windsor, the Great Pond subdivision on Day Hill Road is a 600-acre master plan site where the town and ABB, another large stakeholder in the community, have created an overlay district to provide primarily residential housing for young millennials. It's an often used phrase of live, work, play, but that's something that all the large employers are trying to deal with by trying to attract the young millennial demographic. The third site I'd like to talk about is the town of Farmington, and they're reaching out to the city of Hartford on 86 acres of land that's right at exit 37. That's currently a residential zone piece of property that is going to be changed to an office park zone to allow both the town of Farmington and the state of Connecticut to try to expand their on the Jackson Labs and University of Connecticut Health Center expansion. And then if those development opportunities aren't enough for all of us to have to compete with, we have right over the mountain in Bloomfield, the MetLife campus, which already offers a large employer a live, work, play environment. And I've got examples if people aren't familiar with what that campus is, but it's a 600-acre single-family residential, office, multifamily, 265 apartment units, and a very nice retail center where Ruby Tuesdays and Tapas and Simsbury Bank have locations. So a lot of competition in the marketplace. I think originally we were hoping that this process, and Hiram, I'll maybe hold you to it, I think we kind of thought maybe by March we would have had the approvals. We're a little bit behind, but that's not going to, Cheryl, to your question, where we are with marketing. 90 days isn't the difference here on what we need to do. The difference is creating the blueprint which will allow us to be able to articulate what the town's wishes are to the development community. And I know that was just a lot, but
No, I think it's important,
I'll
though.
answer any questions if that was not where you wanted me to go, or, you know.
We have a lot of meetings that are not broadcast on SCTV, so a lot of this is a repeat of what we already know, but I think for the public to bring everybody up to speed. And I appreciate and respect the Zoning Commission allowing this forum, even though we don't sit as the Zoning Commission, we're not voting on it, to let us take a moment to let the public know, because this is a very important piece of property. It's a very important regulation. And just thanks to the Zoning Commission for allowing one more opportunity for the public to comment.
I did bring, for public, I did bring the kind of the pre-form-based code marketing approach, which highlights the 641,000 square feet and the 173 acres. I don't know if people need
I think
comments.
folks, if you can leave one with the clerk, I think most of us have copies.
Okay.
If someone, if folks don't, we'll provide that. Thank you. Any other questions for John or?
I just have one comment, Mary, that
Mike?
I want the public to know that whether they can attend that meeting on the 7th or not of the zoning commission, they can send a letter,
Absolutely.
I'm assuming, to Hiram,
Absolutely.
so that they can state their opinion, hopefully to keep this process moving forward. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I do think this is very innovative, to say the least, but it's a very good thing, too.
Yeah. And some of the questions, I think Hiram did a great job of really summarizing some of the questions that did come up at the public hearing, which I think were important, that it's the view of the tower and the need to keep that view pristine and making sure that the regulations address that. So if folks have concerns, they can talk to Hiram about that. The other public comments were the type of uses allowed under each of the processes and the public opportunity to comment under each one. So the zoning commission has been addressed. And then finally, I think the number of residential units, the concern over the numbers, that was also addressed at the hearing as well. So those are some of the issues. Other than that, I think there was a very positive feedback from the commission. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll forward our discussions to the zoning commission. Thank you, Hiram. Next item this evening is to approve $7,000 transfer to the recycling committee utilizing the rebate. I know Lori Fernan and Mary Turner are here, so thank you very much. I did for the boards, I'll let these ladies talk about their hard work and their plans. I did also, after receiving The requester did ask Tom Roy to put in context what the request, where the request would come from, and also what the goal of the recycling committee is, so that we had the context of why the recycling committee is working so hard to improve our recycling return. So, thank you.
Right, that sounds great, thanks. And Mary and I are definitely really happy to be here at this place, because we've been talking about this for some time, and I know she's been having a number of conversations with Tom Roy, and so it's been wonderful. And we just feel we're at this great place with recycling in our town, looking at the new recycling goal that the state has and how do we get there. And what we want to do is launch this informational campaign so we can tell people about best practices, because we all know it is really easy, but people do get stuck on, can this go in the recycle bin or can that? And then the other thing is really get the word out that we get rebate money back for our recyclables. And so we've got a couple of different activities that we put in place here, the most expensive of which is this promotional literature. And what we would like to do with that is put together a two-sided card, and the front will be a picture of the Pinchot sycamore, very beautiful, and around it will be the things that you can put in your recycle bin, because we want this to be something that people can stick on their refrigerator, on a bulletin board, so that it's handy for them to go and say, oh, yes, I can pop that in the recycle bin. And then on the back, we'll have websites and other places that they can go to for information. So this is something we'd like to mail out to residents and businesses in the town, but then also have extras here so we can have them here at Town Hall, over at Eno Hall, if the schools want some of this. So that's our most expensive piece, and we have been speaking with Local Color Inc. and getting quotes with that. And of course, it's a little more expensive than most mailings because we want to be going as high as possible with our post-consumer recycled grade. So with the paper we're using, just yes, because we have to.
Goes without saying.
It's more expensive to use it.
So, and then a couple of the other things we have here is looking for a street banner and then standalone sign or signs. And the street banner, Mary definitely knows more about. If you want to tell a little bit about that.
As far as the street banner is concerned, it, to me, is considered an asset for the town, because this is something that can be reused over and over again over several years, as long as it's well taken care of and kept clean, and put up at an appropriate time, not in the dead of winter, freezing, snow, so it can get ripped. But it is, it would bring anybody's attention to it. It's double-sided, so coming and going out of town, you would see this signage. But it is something that can be adjusted for dates and so forth, because you just peel off the lettering, the dates, and replace it with other pertinent, relevant time periods. And that's less than $100 usually. So once you have the initial banner, which ranges anywhere from $700 to $800, then you're talking about your logos of your town and so forth, and that goes on it. But it is something that can be used over a number of years.
And then with the standalone signs, and actually this was something that I just discovered talking to one of the commission members with the Performing Arts Center, saying, how did the recycling go at the events, the Leonard Skinner event, because I actually happened to be there. And she said, we've got plenty of bins, because I was asking, do you need more bins? She's like, we have plenty of bins, but people don't put their cups in there, or their other recyclable materials. So if we had some nice standalone signs, and maybe even have, every once in a while, a couple of the committee members, we could be down there while people are coming in and say, hey, make sure you put your materials in the recycle bin so that we can help boost our recycling rates there also. So, and once again, the standalone signs, they range in price, because when you get to ones that are made out of recyclable materials, they of course are more expensive. However, a decade from now, when we have to replace them, they'll be getting lower, because the more we purchase these things, the
we'll just recycle them.
Exactly. So, and then we wanted to do around Recycling Day, so November 15th, we want to do events, and so one of the things we were talking about was having a competition with the schools, ask students to put, videos together, posters together, and we can vote, and the kids would get a gift for that. We'd also like to look into what other kind of events we can do. We always do our recycling award that month, but we really want to just, once again, keep building the momentum and just talking to people repeatedly about why it's important. And then, as far as events, we are looking to host a composting event this fall. And I had just a very preliminary conversation with the Simsbury Community Farm because they're interested in doing that. So we not only want to have best practicing for composting, but also there's a number of different services becoming available if you want your composting picked up at your home. So for people who don't have the space for a compost bin, they can go ahead and get one of these services. And then the other event, what we would love to do is do something with the Chamber of Commerce and talk about businesses and their green bottom line and how we can enhance their recycling. So we really think, we keep going out there with the message that will boost our numbers. And when looking at, I only have the 2011 recycling data from the DEEP website, but if we just divert 5% of our municipal solid waste from 2011 numbers, we'll cover the $7,000 cost that we're requesting here. So we look for this to ultimately be bringing money back into the town. So,
Thank you.
no, do you have any questions at
questions?
all? And we'll keep you posted, and then do come talk trash with us next Monday. So we'll leave
Thank
flyer
you.
here if anybody wants to pick one up. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the request?
I'll move that.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item is to amend project charge to Public Building Committee for the design and construction oversight of the Henry James Main Office Security Project, Phase 1A, to include the Henry James Interior Hallway Project. Thank you, Burke, for being here this evening, and this comes to us from the Board of Ed. This was approved on Tuesday, June 17th by the Board of Finance. If you recall, this item was tabled to allow the board to have additional conversations with students and staff to determine the scope of the project, and it was already approved by the Board of Selectmen, so we don't need to approve the project. It was not approved by the Board of Finance, and now that it has been, we will need to send this to the Public Building Committee. Any questions? Can I have a motion?
Move that we approve.
I'll second that. Oh, winner.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is to authorize the Board of Ed to apply for the Connecticut School Construction Grants for capital improvement projects at Squadron Line School and Henry James Memorial School. These projects were approved by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance and the taxpayers of Simsbury. And
Nancy,
we
you
would
can do
need
this
to
one.
authorize the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
There we go.
I had to read it. Sean, you tricked me. Okay, resolve that the Board of Selectmen authorizes the Town of Simsbury Board of Education to apply to the Commissioner of Education and to accept or reject a grant for the main office security project at Squadron Line School and a grant for the main office security project and interior hallway improvement project at Henry James Memorial School.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Burke, you did a great job. Thanks for being here.
Invaluable advice.
Great, thank you. Next item is to accept the resignation of Burke Kaplan as a regular member of the Conservation Commission with our thanks.
Move that.
A motion, we have a second. Mrs. Hebner, Mrs. Cook, all in favor?
Aye.
Next item is to
Aye.
accept the,
I said aye.
okay, just checking.
I said
don't
aye,
wanna rush
too.
anybody.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was reading the next
All
one.
right. Next item is to accept the resignation of Dominic Zacchio as a regular member of the Conservation Commission.
I'll move
Again, with
that.
our thanks.
I will second that.
Any
Just thought I'd
questions?
get in there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I said aye on
Next
time that
item
time.
comes to us from the Board of Finance. They would like the board to appoint 2 representatives to the Board of Finance Long Range Plan Subcommittee. Any volunteers?
I'm happy to volunteer. It has to be one from each party, so I'm happy to.
I'd actually like to do that.
Thank you. So can I have a motion to appoint Lisa and Nancy?
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is just correspondence that there was a vote by the Board of Education as per our policy to approve the gift and naming rights for the proposed Thomas Garrity Fitness Center at Simsbury High School. And that is for informational purposes, no action is necessary by the board. Next item is just, again, no action is necessary. The Board of Finance scheduled Tuesday, July 15th at 5 o'clock for a joint meeting to discuss open space plans. The board and the public will be aware of that. Next item is to accept the minutes of the June 9th meeting.
I'll move those.
Second.
Corrections, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any liaison and subcommittee report?
Just a quick update from personnel. We had a personnel meeting tonight to follow up on our recommendation. We mentioned the board last time that we're going to have Tom Cook pick several people to interview for Labor Council, and he has done that and will be setting up interviews over the summer.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to comment on the hazardous waste collection. I literally participated in it. It was one of the last folks to drive in, but it was a very succinct process, and all towns being involved. They had a lot of people there from the various towns working on it, but it was quite a line. It was quite a line, but it moved. So I got rid of all my stuff.
Great, thank you. Next, two items are executive session items. One is an update on status of the police union pension contract negotiations, and the second is a discussion of possible action regarding foreclosure of 23 Mountain Road. I'd ask that the board go into executive session and invite Tom Cook and town attorney.
Move to enter executive session.
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
We are so moved. Thank you very much.
Kathy, you just get to pick sometimes.
Right. We're not
Zara, I'm
going
gonna
to
open my
second
mouth
guess
first.
you.
Yeah, really.
Are we going in Europe?
Yeah. I think we're going.